The idea of COVID vaccines that it's more effective to get the virus. Isn't that interesting? I mean, they stumbled on the truth, probably not the way they intended, but I think they are. It's better just get that through natural infection. So this is just a slide about a cardiovascular surgeon warning about the problems with vaccines in the heart. This is just, David Kessler, he was big wig in the CDC, FDA. They basically said that fewer than 1% of vaccine reactions are reported to the VAERS.
A lot of people don't know. How do you know that it's a vaccine reaction?
Well, you don't. The question was, how do you know it's a vaccine reaction? But I can tell you that if a perfectly healthy child gets a vaccine at 8 o'clock in the morning and 11 o'clock has a seizure, most people with half a brain would say there's probably a relationship there. But see, we don't see that because we know that vaccines are safe. Very good. I got a smart audience here. Yeah, Marie, do you have a comment? No. So anyway, and in fact, Suzanne Humphreys in that book I mentioned, she said that when she would go to the ERs and talk to nurses, not only had they never once filled out a vaccine injury report, they didn't even know where the forms were. And I'll tell you something, this is happening regularly. And when these kids go back to their pediatrician or go to the ER, they just, it's not the vaccine, it's got to be something else. Do you have a question?
My mom had the second, both Moderna shots. And the second, you want to know how it's a reaction from the shot, that evening after she had the shot, she threw up all night. So it's kind of an obvious thing. And she felt sick the next day as well, and she was fine the day after that. So, and she probably did not report anything. I can almost guarantee it. I'll have to ask her. Yeah.
See, the problems with the safety data is these companies, I tend to think deliberately, don't follow people very long. Hepatitis B, they follow them for 5 days. So if on day 6, they drop dead, it has nothing to do with the vaccine. And that's kind of what we're up against. And most people say, well, wait a minute. So here's a little fun fact. So the Pfizer vaccine, well, let's hang on a minute. I'll come back to this. Sorry. Oh, there's 2 other ways that they can report data. See, the VAERS, it said, whoops, I keep pushing the wrong button, sorry. VR website, it is not possible to use VAERS data to calculate how often adversity occurs in the population. Huh? So both the Vaccine Safety Data Link and vSafe are considered active surveillance systems sensitive for identifying events and calculating rates. Unlike VAERS, neither system's contents are available for public scrutiny. And of course, because you just can't possibly understand the information that they're presenting. Okay, so let's see here. So this was a podcast with Dr. David Martin, RFK Jr., Gina Mikovitz, and Rocco Galanfall. Vaccines are a legally defined term, and they're legally defined that they have to stimulate both immunity and also disrupt transmission. And COVID vaccination has not been shown to do that. So it is a treatment. It is not a vaccine in the traditional sense. Yes, sir?
So the fact that all the things that you were showing were things were going down and going down, is that why they're pushing the vaccine so hard, because they know this is on the going down, or is it just sorry to jump ahead, the cycles of being scaled down so they're not actually going out to the point where everybody's testing positive, false, or real?
Well, without going down the eugenics rabbit hole, let's just say, just from a financial point of view, they want to get as many of these out there as they can before herd immunity kicks in. Because then their argument for getting the vaccine keeps getting less and less and less and less. And so groups like this, each of you have a sphere of influence. And so I encourage you to try to get people to listen and to read and to search things. You'll be very surprised what you dig up. I got started this 25 years ago when I read Len Horowitz's book on AIDS. And Len just kind of stumbled on this. He's an investigative reporter. And to make a very long book, very, very short, I'll give you the quick Reader's Digest. Basically, HIV was created in the lab. And what they were doing is the government was mucking around with germ warfare. Remember the kids with the gasoline and the matches in the early 60s, and they spliced simian immunodeficiency viruses into human cells. They literally created HIV. They got the vaccines in the blood supply. It was a huge oops. So they concocted this green monkey story over in Africa, and everybody bought it. And, but this stuff's all, it's crazy. Dr. Fauci, he did the original gain of function. Maybe you know what gain of function research is. Who can tell me what that is? Yes. Go ahead, speak up.
Oh, me? Yeah, you.
Yeah. What is it?
They strengthen the virus
Right.
so that it's harder to treat or
Very good. Yeah.
make it stronger.
And virologists scratch their head and go, why would you want to make a virus more deadly? And they come up with all kinds of excuses of why they want to do this, but it's insanity. And in 2013, the government stopped funding gain-of-function research, so they shipped it over to Wuhan. And this is all, you can look this all up, it's all common knowledge. They gave $3.7 million to keep doing the research. They gave another $3.7 million a year or two ago. It's crazy. Yes, you're back?
What was the name of Lynn's book?
It's AIDS, Ebola. Len Horowitz is the author. And Len is really good. He makes no assumptions. He backs everything up. It's a hard read. But by the time you get done, you go, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And see, like I said, as you begin to learn this stuff, when you see things that are put out there, they're not so unbelievable to believe. There's a term called cognitive dissonance. Has anyone heard of that term? Okay. So you get a certain belief system, and you go along in life, and you may get it reaffirmed by different sources. And then all of a sudden, somebody like me comes along and tells you something that's completely different, and you're torn. Your first inclination, Dr. Grable, he's just full of crap. But some people say, wait a minute, maybe there's something. That's with Sherry Tenpenny. Sherry went to a 2000 National Vaccine Injury Conference, and she was pro-vaccine. She was triple boarded, and 4 days of why vaccines are potentially harmful. So she thought, well, I'll go home, and I know if I spend enough time, I can find out why vaccines are safe and effective. That was 20 years, 40,000 hours ago.
What was her last name?
Sherry Tenpenny. And you can find her stuff all over. She's just constantly giving talks. She's written books, and she arguably knows more about vaccines than maybe anybody. I don't know. But she's made this her life work. Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to comment, if people don't know, you might want to use DuckDuckGo as
Yeah,
your
very good.
as your
Yes.
search engine instead of Google, because a lot of what Dr. Grable is referencing, you will not find if you search on Google. But DuckDuckGo is
Right.
an alternative.
The comment was DuckDuckGo.
DuckDuckGo also filters the search engine.
So they've gone on the dark side too now?
Ecosia, E-C-O-S-I-A.
Ecosia? ECOSIA.org. Thank you.
Say that one again.
See, what we're all after truth, right? I mean, that's why you guys are here tonight. I know we're kind of just rambling a little bit, but I think it's a little more fun and interesting than just throwing up a bunch of slides. But it is, we all want truth, and so that's the key. Yes, sir, good question.
I noticed it was on one of your slides up there, but we passed over, but I just wanted to bring it up. The letter that the two Pfizer doctors wrote to the EU Board of Medical talking about the spike protein syntocin-1, which contributes to the formation of human placenta in women. It basically forms an immune response against it, going back to what you said about the cell mediated immunity. It basically makes antibodies over and over again, therefore destroying what it's doing. What's your opinion on that?
We don't know.
I know it's kind
You know,
of
it's interesting. The sort of anti-vax people say, that we really don't have any evidence that it reduces fertility in men and women. But if you read the pro-vaccine people, they'll say, well, we didn't study it. We don't think it will, but we don't know. And so because there's a lot of homology there, and so there's a lot of, there's a lot of question marks. If nothing else, you should come to the conclusion, it's not all adding up. And this should give you pause, before you stick some foreign substance in your body. And especially when there's things you can do to protect yourself. Your immune system is your best ally. I don't care. I would argue that till the cows come home. Yes, ma'am, come back. I hear you loud and clear. Her question was, how does she get her dad not to get the vaccine? And, we got people watching the Communist News Network all day long.
Well, he works at the airport.
People, it's the propaganda. We keep getting fed.
You said he works at the airport too,
He works at the
he
works at the airport.
And he's already been around people who have tested positive for, and I'm telling him, look, you have asthma, you have allergies,
Right.
you should not get the
Right.
vaccine.
Right. Yeah, it's got some autoimmune problems. Probably the best thing, if he's willing to spend an hour, have him watch the Mercola-Mikovits interview on Mercola.com, MERCOLA.com. Joe started a huge medical place up in Chicago. He's living down the road now, either New Smyrna or Ormond, I forget which. But Joe's got a real good site, probably tens of thousands of articles on there, and he interviewed Judy Mikovits, who some people call a kook. I read all 3 of her books. I think she's sharp as a tack. And she goes through a lot of the technical stuff of why she's so concerned about these so-called vaccines and what they can do. And she just said, I can't sleep at night. And then show them the data from Children's Health Effects. There's almost 1,000, probably over 1,000 now deaths, 13,000 side effects, whatever. Yes, Marie.
Speaking of Judy Mikovits, who's gone after her more than once for the silencer?
Who?
Fauci.
Oh yeah, well, she's been after, I found it for a number of years. And if she didn't have grounds for her attacks, he could easily have brought her to court for libel. And notice that he hasn't done that.
I did not know who Dr. Fauci was before he just started in all this. You probably know this better, but because of the HIV thing that you just mentioned, how many patents does Dr. Fauci have on HIV actual vaccines? Because there's a number of them that he's been a part of the teams developing. So he has patents, but when he says he's not making any money.
Oh, no, he's making oodles of money.
Yeah.
Lots of
conflict of interest like any.
Absolutely. Well, that's my belief is, and this is just my opinion, sorry, Ashley. The gain of function research, I think these are smart businessmen. And so he knew if he could create a bad virus, they could create a vaccine to cure it. It's the whole Hegelian dialect. You create a problem, you come up with a solution. This is classic. And I think this goes on all the time.
They have medications to treat all the side effects.
I'm sorry?
The suppression of basic information like hydrochloroquine or eversomine or whatever that is.
Oh, well, HCQ prior to Joe Biden was terrible. Now it's okay.
Right.
I got a slide on that.
Is it?
Yes.
It's just a quick question. So I think we would all agree that our immune system is our #1 defense and build it up and keep it strong. Are there other things? And we would all probably have some varying degrees of how to do that. But for example, things like vitamin D3, is there any truth that will help?
Oh yeah. There's more and more data coming out about that. A friend of mine, I was saying that we were talking before the meeting, a friend of mine, he has some MDs in her family, and she talks about some of these vitamins. They go, oh, there's no evidence of vitamin A and stuff in the immune. Just go to PubMed and type in vitamin A immune system. You get about 4,000 hits. Vitamin D, same thing. There's abundant data on this stuff. And I've got a slide, I'll make sure I get to it before we leave here tonight. And I use ACD zinc, and I've got a few things that we do. And then if necessary, I go to the meds and so forth. So we got things we can do for that.
I still have a question.
Yes, sure, go ahead.
So with the people who are getting the mRNA vaccines, are they dangerous? Is it dangerous to be?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay.
What the mRNA vaccine does, well, I just have to come on the slide.
Hey! We're coordinated.
So what they do, messenger RNA, in your body, you have DNA, right?
Right.
Your body creates stuff called RNA, and the DNA will read the messenger RNA and it spit off proteins as it needs to. What the body has, it has a very rapid system of RNA enzymes that break the messenger RNA down, because messenger RNA that stays in the system can become dangerous. So it's like it does its job and then it's gone. So the concern is they encase this in what's called polyethylene glycol, or PEG, so that it will get through the cell membrane. What we don't know is how long this messenger RNA stays in the body. So what happens is your body sees that messenger RNA, the DNA goes down and reads it and starts creating these spike proteins. If you heard that term, spike proteins, little proteins on the outside of the virus that tells the immune system to make antibodies. So they have proven that they can make a brisk antibody response. The problem is we want balance. And what we're fearful of is your body is going to make too brisk an antibody response. See, when you get a disease naturally, you go through that cell-mediated immunity, little Pac-Man, and then you make antibodies. Your body is very wise.